Good morning, Bridgewood. If we haven't met before, I'm the new guy. My name is Brian. I am the executive community pastor here. It is such an honor to be able to come and be here with you to bring the word to you this morning. Before we start, you ever have that experience where you feel like you're the expert in something until you do the thing? Yeah, I feel like that's a lot of what college kind of teaches us to do, right? You learn all the stuff, you learn all the things, and then you do the job and you have no idea what you're doing. Yeah. For me, where I was struck by this the most was parenting. You see, I thought I was an expert on parenting, right? I took the parenting classes, I read the books. I was an expert parent until I had kids. Right? Have you experienced that before? You see, for me, kids are crazy. I mean, kids are wild. They bring chaos. That's what it means to be a kid. And in my head, I knew how to parent that, right? I mean, when a kid is being wild, when they're being obnoxious, I mean, what do? I know exactly how to be, right? You put two hands on their shoulder. You get right down on eye level with them. You get calm, right? I would just have the Zen-like kind of voice. Hey, let's calm it down, buddy, right? Drop those wisdom bombs on them that they go, wow, Dad, that's amazing, right? That would change their behavior forever, would bring peace to the whole family, right? I knew how to parent that. And then I watched my kids try to follow Lego instructions for the first time. Have you ever experienced that? Right? They're putting pieces in the wrong places. They're skipping steps. They're putting the pieces together, but not all the way together. And you're emptying out all the bags into one pile instead of going one bag at a time. The chaos of that, right? Anyone have kids who've mastered the art of spilling? Yeah. So growing up, I had the nickname Mr. Spills. That's what my parents lovingly, called me. And so, of course, I passed that on to my kids. A couple weeks ago, I was, on our main level, and I was reading my Bible. I was having my morning coffee, and one of the kids came booking it down the stairs and turned the corner and bumped into the table where my coffee was. And it just spilled a little bit, but when he turned to see what he ran into, he elbowed the rest of my coffee everywhere. It got on the couch, it got on some tax files, went into the power strip that my laptop was in. That was fun. It was just a mess. And so I'm trying to keep my composure, which not great. But my wife comes running over. We're cleaning things up. It's all over the side of the couch, so we're trying not to let the couch stain, so we're trying to clean that off. We're cleaning up this big mess. We get the kid involved because, hey, you made the mess. You got to help clean it up. And so while we're doing that, we kind of get breakfast going. At this point, all breakfast plans were off. We're just doing cereal. So we got cereal all poured, ready to go. Same kid goes right to the spot, but has to look to see how we're cleaning things up. And sure enough, cereal everywhere. Now listen, I know how a good parent, right, handles that situation. But gracious Zen-like dad is not what came out, right? When push came to shove, what came out of me were words that I don't want my kids repeating. Now, I say all of that to simply say this as we go into this morning. Whether you believe in Jesus or not, we are all works in progress, right? I mean, every one of us, that is who we are. We are no expert on just about anything. We have been in this conversation the last couple of weeks talking about the Beatitudes, right? These blessed are statements of Jesus. And as we've been having this conversation together, these statements, these blessed are statements, they're more than just nice phrases that look good on a bumper sticker. Right? They're more than just a list of to-dos that Jesus is giving us, hey, do these things, and then you'll be blessed, right? That's not what these are. These blessed are sayings, what Jesus is doing here is bringing clarity to what God values and who he is inviting you and me to become when we choose to follow Jesus. And so as we jump into this conversation today, especially if you're here and you're still unsure about Jesus, I first just welcome. I'm so glad that you're here to be part of this community. But secondly, I just want you to know, as we are having these conversations, we are all works in progress. right? None of us are experts on any of this. We're simply a community trying to figure these things out together. And I want to invite you onto that journey with us. So we are in Matthew chapter 5, verse 9. And the beatitude that we're going to look at, the blessed are statement of Jesus that we're going to look at today is this. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they'll be called children of God. Now, early on in this series, Brendan was telling us about what this word blessed means, right? Because I think we get a lot of confusion around what this word actually means, right? We'll say, yeah, somebody sneezes, oh, bless you, right? We'll sign our emails, blessings, right? But we throw it out a lot, but don't necessarily know fully what that actually means. And Brendan told us, he taught us right at the beginning of this, that to be blessed is simply about God's extended favor. That when you are blessed, it's God has extended his favor on you. And so as we read this, what we hear from Jesus is that God's extending his favor to the peacemakers. To the peacemakers. I think we can all agree that the world could use some more peacemakers, couldn't it? Now, before we jump into that conversation around the peacemakers, I actually want to focus in on the second half of what Jesus said, right? Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. I want to start there, okay? They'll be called children of God. What does it mean to be a child of God, to be a son of God or a daughter of God? In Galatians, which is a letter written by this man named Paul, who had this wild transformation experience with Jesus, that he was this kind of just evil dude and had this encounter with Jesus that he became a child of God, and it transformed his life forever. And so we're going to read what he has to say about what it means to be a child of God. In Galatians chapter 3, he says this. He says, so in Christ Jesus, you are all children of God through faith. For all of you who are baptized into Christ have clothed yourself with Christ. There's neither Jew or Gentile, neither slave nor free, nor is there male and female, for you are all one in Christ Jesus. See, like the long and short of what Paul is trying to tell us is that when you choose to follow Jesus, you are adopted into his family. You become like a child of God, that becomes the defining thing about who you are. All those other things that they might also kind of be true about you, but the most true thing about who you now are is a child of God, that you're part of God's family. Now, it's more than just like being adopted into a family. It's bigger than that. Elsewhere in the scriptures, it tells us that when you start to follow Jesus, it's like you are made new. You're given this new life. That the old you is put to death, and this new you, this new life is now extended to you, is given to you. It's like you are given this new DNA, this new spiritual DNA that redefines who you truly are. Anyone ever get one of those DNA tests done, like Ancestry.com or any of that kind of stuff? Anyone ever do that? I recently had a DNA test done for some health kind of things going on, but it was like a comprehensive DNA test. And so it told me all kinds of things about my DNA. And so when I got the results back of this, sometimes they can tell you like, hey, your ancestry or where you're from or your how. And the first thing that I learned from my DNA is that I actually have a superpower. That in my DNA, in my genes, I have the superpower to be able to identify if you've had asparagus recently simply by smelling your pee. Yeah, so I have that going for me, which is always weird. I have a friend who, like, she doesn't get it. I was like, no, I can smell that. And she's like, what? Because she doesn't have the genes for that. I do. I have that. So that was exciting. I also learned that in my ancestry that I am very European, hence the really pasty white skin, right? I learned that about myself. But also like some cool things that I learned just in my genes that I'm not predisposed to certain types of cancers that other people might be. So that was good. Now I share that to simply say this, that my parents gave me my DNA. Okay, like all of that was already in me before I even knew that that's what was true about me, right? That already lived in me. And in a similar way, when you become a child of God, There's certain characteristics in you that are already true about you. That in this like new spiritual DNA, this new life that you're given, that you receive this new identity. And part of what is true about who you already are, if you're a follower of Jesus, is that you are already a peacemaker. This is what's already true about who you are. Now, it's weird because you don't always feel like that, right? I mean, what does it mean to be a peacemaker? How do I even live into that, right? I mean, if following Jesus is about coming into alignment with who he's already said that I am, how do I do that? And what does it even mean to be a peacemaker, right? If that's who I am, if that's what Jesus is inviting me into, how do I be a peacemaker? What does that even mean? Well, this word peacemaker, it's actually, when Jesus says this, it's the only time in the scriptures that word is used, peacemaker. But there's one other time where a similar version of that word is used, and that's in Colossians chapter 1. And I added kind of the opening, right, the setup to this next word, because it's going to create some context for us about what it means to be a peacemaker. So Colossians chapter 1, starting at verse 19. It says, "For God was pleased to have all his fullness dwell in him," talking about Jesus. For God was pleased to have all his fullness dwell in Jesus. I want to pause there because this is important for us to understand, is that if you want to know what God is like in all his fullness, look to Jesus. That I think that we can sometimes get confused, or we can look to other places, and sure, we can get glimpses into what God is like when we look at creation, or even when we look at like the Old Testament. But if you want to know what God is like in his fullness, we look to Jesus. This is why we call ourselves Christians, right? To be like Christ, to be little Jesuses, because that's where the fullness of God is found. That's where the fullness of who we are can be discovered. That's who we're called to become. So it says, for the fullness of God was pleased to dwell in Jesus, right? It says, and through him, Jesus, to reconcile to himself all things, whether things on earth or things in heaven. And then here's that word, by making peace through his blood shed on the cross. That Jesus was the ultimate peacemaker. And how did he make peace? By reconciling all things to himself through shedding his blood on the cross. Now, that word reconciling, it's a word that I think is used more often now, which is awesome. But again, what does that word mean? When we say reconcile, right, Jesus reconciled all things to himself. To reconcile something simply means to bring something back into right relationship, right? Or to maybe give you a little bit of a picture. It's as if there are things that are broken or fractured or not completely together, and to reconcile it means to take those pieces and bring them back into wholeness. And when it comes to relationships, right, reconciling relationships, what this means, what this looks like is that what once was broken is brought back together, and there's this settledness in it. That there can still be conflict, there can still be arguing, there can still be wrestling or doubting, there can still be all of that, but the relationship isn't in danger because it's reconciled, right? The things are already brought together into wholeness. And this is what Jesus does. He reconciles all things to himself, and particularly our relationship with God. That when you step into a relationship with God, you don't have to wonder whether or not God is mad at you, or if he's upset at you, or if something's, you don't have to worry about that because it's reconciled, it's whole. That relationship is not in danger. You can have conflict, you can struggle, but that relationship is already whole. And you see, this is what Jesus is inviting us into, is to become peacemakers, to become like that towards other people. What does it look like to posture yourself in a way where, hey, listen, no matter what happens here, our relationship isn't in danger. I'm here. I'm for us. I'm in it, right? That we get to invite others into that kind of relationship. But also, we invite others into that relationship with God, right? What does it mean that they've been reconciled to God? That we get to receive this invitation of Jesus to be who he's already told us that we are, peacemakers. Now, this sounds really wonderful. And it is, right? It's good, it's dandy, it's lovely, it's all the things. But can we just get honest here, like get back into reality? Life is crazy. Life is chaos, right? There's so many things going on in the world, and we are supposed to be peacemakers in the midst of the crazy. Have you felt the weight of chaos recently? I mean, I wrote these down. Like in a single day, I mean, think about this. Every day, there's bills to pay, there's food to cook, there's emails to respond to, there's relatives that drive you crazy, there's traffic on the way to work, there's traffic on the way home from work, right? There's birthdays to celebrate, there's calendars to manage, there's endless numbers of Netflix shows to binge watch, right? There's so many things going on in life, and it's crazy town. Then things break, and you got to fix them, and then there's so many things. And on top of all of that, go and be a peacemaker. Do you feel that? Have you ever felt that way? Like, life is crazy town. Life is chaos. So how do I step into that space where I can be a peacemaker even though all the things around me are crazy, are chaotic? What does it mean to be a peacemaker in the midst of that? When my oldest, Daniel, was born, it was chaos. It was crazy town. You see, for 9 months, right, preparing to be a parent, my wife and I, we did all the things, right? We took classes, we read books, we had the baby showers, we prepared the room, we put the crib together, right? We got all the clothes together, we bought diapers, we did all the things in preparation for Daniel to come. And then the day came where I get a phone call at 8:45 in the morning from Abby, and she says, "I'm in labor. It's time to go to the hospital." Whew. It's go time. What she didn't know is that 5 minutes before she made that phone call, I had just finished the most intense leg day workout of my entire life. But I can't complain about that because I'm not in labor. So we rush off to the hospital. They put us into the room. And so we're in the room, we're waiting for the doctor, and I'm like, "She's in labor. Why is nobody here? What's going on?" I can't really stand, so I'm sitting. Nothing's wrong. But we're waiting, and finally the doctors come in. They're like, "All right, we got a room ready for you." So they take us, they put us into the room, and then from there, like the nurses, they come in, they come out, they come in, they come out, they come in, they come out. And they're always checking on us, like, "Okay, how are you doing?" They're doing all the tests. For 30 plus hours, my wife is in labor, and we're in this room, and they're checking things, and finally the doctors come in, they do a test, and they're like, "Okay, we hate to say this, but you got to have a C-section." So, okay, it's go time. So they prep everything in about a matter of 5 minutes, right? They get her off, and they do the epidural. They get her off and into the OR, and I'm in a panic mode, going, "What? We're doing what right now?" And so they get the cap and gown, the whole thing on me, all of it, right? And they usher me off into the operating room, and they open the doors, and there they are, right? The surgeons are in there, the nurses, there's people, they're talking to each other, they're trying to be polite to me, but they're ready to get down to business here, so they're not really doing the niceties. And I walk in, and they set me down next to Abby, and I hear all the buzzing and whirring and clicking and beeping of all the machines that are going on, and so I'm sitting down, and I'm in a panic, and there's Abby, she's like, "Oh my gosh, here we go," and I'm doing everything in my power not to crack jokes, because that's what I do when I'm nervous. And so when I'm stressed out, not the time to do that. So I'm sitting down trying not to crack jokes, and they got the sheet up so you can't see anything, and I did the one thing that nobody should ever do. I looked over the sheet. Don't do that. Don't do that. I happened to look over the sheet at the exact moment that they were taking Daniel out of Abby's stomach. It looked like the thing from Alien where they're like that's what it looked like. It was horrible. So I'm in a panic. I sit back down. Abby's sitting there, and she's like, "What's going on?" I'm like, I don't know. They bring Daniel around. He's covered in blood and the alien goop, and they come over, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And they set Daniel down on Abby's chest. And the whole world stops. There's peace in the midst of chaos. I'd be willing to bet that there's some of you right now who are feeling the weight of the chaos in your life right now. And you desperately are looking for some peace. What I can tell you is that Jesus isn't waiting for your chaos to slow down. He's asking if he can get into it with you. You see, that's what Jesus does. He steps into the midst of our chaos. If I can just be really transparent with you, Bridgewood, the last 9 months of my life have been the hardest 9 months of my life. That I've gone through a lot of things that I never would have anticipated. I've had to walk through a lot of grief, loss of some family members. I've had to go through things that I never could have imagined that I would have to go through. It's been a hard 9 months. And on top of all of that, the reality of this past month, having to walk through and process the grief of stepping away from a church family, the only church family I've ever known, it's been a lot to process. If I can just be really honest with you, chaos, when I talk about chaos, that's a really fitting word for the past 9 months of my life. That in these last 9 months, it could have been so easy to just get lost in the wild, in the chaos, in the mess. But I have made Jesus my non-negotiable these past 9 months. That I've so desperately needed the voice of Jesus in my life because I've done the chaos thing before. I've done the, hey, Jesus, I've got this before. I've done that, and I know how that story goes. And I didn't want to do that again. I couldn't do it again. So these last 9 months, I've so desperately needed Jesus to be in the chaos with me. And so I've done certain things. I've set reminders on my phone to go off throughout every day so that it just refocuses my mind. Right in the midst of chaos, it's like baby Daniel being brought back down. It's like Jesus stepping into the chaos where I can focus back in on the one thing that brings me peace. That at bedtime prayers with my wife and my kids, right? I've stopped letting that time be like rote and scripted prayers. I'm praying from my heart because I've needed Jesus to be there with me. For me, music worship has never been a primary way that I've connected with God. But in these past 9 months, God has been using music to heal my heart in a way like I've never experienced before. And there's one song in particular that as God's been ministering to me, there's a lyric from this one song that I think explains so much of where I'm at right now. And it's the lyric, it's the words, I've got peace that makes no sense. That my life has been chaos, and I should be too. But I've got peace that makes no sense. That as I've spent time with Jesus, the peacemaker, I'm learning what it means to find wholeness, to find peace in the midst of my chaos. As God's been healing my heart, I'm learning now how to invite others into that peace with me. I'm learning what it means to be a peacemaker. And so as we close today, the worship team is so gracious. I asked if they would lead us in that song for us. And they've so graciously said, yeah, they'd be willing to do that. And so as we close in this last song, this is my invitation that I want to extend to you. For the next 5 minutes or so, I simply want to invite you to just have an honest conversation with Jesus. That if you're here and maybe chaos is that defining word for you right now, that you're feeling that, then would you invite Jesus into it right now? Would you invite him in? And here's my invitation as you do that. Just be honest about it. I think sometimes, especially when we feel like we're a mess, when we feel like we're chaotic, and then we feel like we have to have a conversation with God, sometimes we can, get like, oh, I have to say certain things in a certain way or act a certain way, or talk to Jesus like you would a friend. I mean, just be real and honest and raw about where you're at. God, I'm frustrated. God, I'm pissed off. God, I feel like I'm falling apart. I'm grieving. To just be honest with him. Invite him into it with you. Because God, the peacemaker, wants to be with you. So as we close in the song, that's my invitation to you, that as you learn to be with Jesus, the peacemaker, would that allow you to be moved to a place of inviting others into that peace with you? Because blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. And this morning, if you're here and maybe you're still not totally sure about this Jesus thing, I want to invite you to have a conversation with him. Invite him in. See what he might say. If it's helpful to have somebody pray with you, ask the person next to you. Find myself or a volunteer or staff here. We'd love to pray with you. But invite Jesus to be with you in the midst of whatever that chaos is that you're feeling. Let me say a prayer. Jesus, I first want to just thank you for the peace that you've brought into my own life. God, you know the chaos that I've been in and the struggle that it's been. But Jesus, you're so good. I want to thank you so much for the peace that you've brought. Jesus, right now, would you allow us to experience your peace? We're listening, Jesus. We're pouring out our hearts. We're open-handed. Would you bring your peace? Would you be the peacemaker that you are so that we might become the peacemakers that we are as well? Jesus, be with us now.